moving on a little bit to the idea of um, a little transition between a victim mentality. This is a silly game, this, but a victim mentality to victor. And I think there's a simple idea that what you've just described in helping your friend is the route to growing up, actually. It is only when one starts to look after other people, to become a sort of mentor type of figure, that we step from a childish, dependent way of living to one which is more equal. And I think what often happens is that people my age, my generation, and in fact people younger than me, but probably the age of many of your lecturers at college, what they often do is underestimate the ability of someone who's 18 or 19 to behave like a very mature adult. And I think this is why I'm having this conversation with you now. I'm keen that you get out on social media and that you are spreading the word in your particular circle to encourage people to think of themselves as adults and to challenge their parents in a good way. So let's look at the sort of idea of what I mean by victim to victor. There's a very life-enhancing idea behind, I think, experiencing a traumatic experience where we have been, and I think the word victims, yeah, it's got a strong pejorative connotations. We often think, I don't want to be a victim. Some people love being the victim, and when we see those people, we think, oh my goodness, just take responsibility for your own crap and move on. But at the same time, I think we need to recognize in a healthy way that 90% of the things that are going to happen to us in life we did not choose. And to think otherwise is to become a complete control freak. I mean, we're not gods. Life is weird. The stuff that happens to us every day is out of our control. What is in our control is how we react to it. And this is where the sort of victor thing comes in. So I spend my day job is making movies or helping people making movies. And those heroic structures, those stories are exactly along these lines. We have a character who's not a hero at the top of the story. They've got all sorts of flaws, all sorts of issues, and then they're presented with very difficult circumstances through which they identify within themselves certain heroic qualities. This is the power of story. Each one of us is going to have that journey through life. So I'm interested in people understanding, educating themselves into some of those patterns. One of the key philosophies that lies beneath this idea of story is that if we experience this trauma and embrace it, we may just be able to help other people not having to travel down the path that we've been. In other words, if we have had an awful heartbreak and we've learned something about the peculiar nature of romantic love, and one of our friends comes to us and they are undergoing the same experience that we've just been through, are we not in a position to help them by saying, have you thought about this? Have you, because you can do it with empathy. It's not like you've read a book about it. You've actually been there, got the t-shirt and have felt it. Yeah. You can say to that person, I felt this exactly like you did a year ago. God, it feels shit, doesn't it? Well, that's a pretty good start to a conversation. And then you can say, don't say time heals. That generally doesn't help very much. Don't say there are a lot of other fish in the sea. That doesn't help very much. But what you might be able to say is, you know what? I think that relationship that I had that felt so important ended because it needed to end. And now I'm in a place where I understand I've grown. Those sort of things are actually wiser, I think. They talk about the transient nature of many aspects of life, including romantic love. So love and sex are pretty big drivers when you're between the ages of 15 and 25. That doesn't stop there. But my goodness, it's hard to compete with those aspects of life when you're in that decade or decade and a half. There's nothing much out there that can compete effectively with the notion of romantic love. So I think this idea of victim, victor in that particular area of life is fascinating. We generally, if you're anything like me, we tend to go to our peer group. We go to another 17-year-old. If we're 17, we go to another 17-year-old to discuss why we feel so awful because so-and-so hasn't responded to our Snapchat or whatever. We don't go to our mum and dad first. We go to our friends.
Yeah.
And that's right. I think that's right. Do you find that that's the case in your own experience?
For sure, there's definitely instances where I go to friends before I would go to my parents on problems that I'm dealing with, mainly because they're my age, so they're understanding and they're also going through similar stuff. And also, like, even things that, like, we're going through, like, certain issues you occur when growing up that me and my friends faced, that my parents faced when they were growing up, it's very different. So, like, for instance, like the dating scene now, and even my parents will tell me, is completely different than the dating scene back then. But one major issue that I have been told, and like my peers have been told, um, that's wrong with our generation is that we have a tendency to try to victimize ourselves, which is very bad when, like, we're talking about narratives and trying to take control of your own narrative, because if you keep pinning yourself as this victim, then as a victim you're not going to gain the necessary strength to overcome certain issues and be the hero of your own narrative. So I'd like to think that I surround myself with great people, my friends and family, who are making sure that I don't try to victimize myself. And they're giving me the support, and also reverse, I like to think that I also keep them in check, like they keep me in check, to not try to victimize themselves as well.
And do you think that there's any connection between, I mean, I hate this business of Generation Z or millennials. I hate that those groupings because it makes millions of people on the planet robots. I mean, they're not. We're individuals. So it really annoys me. However, let's look at this business of a sort of victim mentality and a perception that is current that maybe people in their I don't know, late teens and early 20s are showing those characteristics a tad more than perhaps 20 years ago. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case, but let's just run with it for a second. What do you think, as a wise young soul, that your peers could do to address that issue?
Um, I definitely think, again, going back to, like, it all involves on who you surround yourself with. Because I feel like if you surround yourself with people that you feel are wiser than you and that can teach you valuable skills, that will just help better your character and better yourself and get yourself as a stronger person to take control of your own narrative. And I also think that these people are very valuable in that they can help you and help reassure you that things are going to be okay. So for me, whenever I see someone who is either over complaining or over worrying on something that they're going through, some kind of issue or problem, I would hope to be that person to be able to reassure them and just comfort them and tell them that, this is not the end all be all. Like, they're gonna get through this. To continue listening to Steve and Sydney's conversation, please click the next video that deals with the condition of oneself.